All right, let's take a look at some sports now. Here's Barong, Tony Uranta.
Thank you, Joma, and welcome to Sports News. The national under-17 women's team, the Flamingos, are already having a field of the Samuel Ogwumudya Stadium, venue of their 2018 under-17 Women's World Cup qualifier against Ethiopia on December the 16th. Coach Bala Nkiu led the girls to today's training session and is confident that they are ready to correct all the lapses experienced in the first leg clash that ended 1-1 in Addis Ababa on December the 3rd. Flamingos forward Joy Jerry gave Nigeria the lead in the 18th minute before Takiriko Debiso got the equalizer for the home team in the 36th minute of the match. Meanwhile, the Ethiopians are now in Benin City ahead of the crucial tie. The winner will face Cameroon or Algeria in the last round to qualify for the under-17 World Cup in Uruguay next year. And President Vladimir Putin is confident that Russia will have everything ready to host the 2018 FIFA World Cup. Putin told an audience of more than 1,600 Russian and foreign reporters gathered in a Moscow conference hall where his annual end of the New Year Youth Conference of the country has vast experience in holding major sports events. The tournament will begin on June the 14th to the July the 15th in 12 venues spread across 11 cities, including Moscow. And South American Football Confederation, Conmebol, has condemned the violence that erupted between fans of Brazilian club Flamengo and their Argentine counterparts Independiente at the final of the Copa Sudamericana. Police authorities in Rio de Janeiro said that about 50 Flamengo fans were detained after they set off firecrackers outside a hotel being used by Independiente. Police used tear gas to bring the crowd under control, while further incidents involving rival supporters followed later. Independiente edged Flamengo 3-2 to emerge champions of the Copa Sudamericana. The prize ring now, and boxing promoter Eddie Hearn says he has 3 potential fights for Tyson Fury if he's guaranteed a license to return to the sport. The British Boxing Board of Control confirmed yesterday it will consider restoring Fury's license in January. And should that happen, Hearn is ready to make 3 fights for the 29-year-old against Dillian White, Tony Bellew, and Nigeria's Anthony Joshua. Fury on Tuesday accepted a backdated 2-year ban from the UK anti-doping agency, which expired on December the 12th. And finally, we end with cycling, where 4-time Tour de France winner Chris Froome says he has not broken any rules after returning an adverse drugs test results during his victory at this year's Vuelta a España. Froome had twice the permissible amount of asthma medication in his system during the Grand Tour race, which he won in September. The Team Sky rider maintained he increased his dosage, but it was within the legal limits.
I've always taken my leadership in the sport, leadership position in the sport very seriously. I mean, obviously the sport is coming from a place with a very dark background, and I've tried to do everything throughout my career to try and show that the sport has turned around. And certainly in my case now, I certainly don't feel as if there was any wrongdoing. There are very clear limits as to how much salbutamol an athlete is able to take. It doesn't require a TUE, and you have to remember, I mean, I've been a professional cyclist now, treating my symptoms and racing with asthma for 10 years now. This is my 10th season as a professional cyclist. I know what those rules are, I know what those limits are, and I've never gone over those limits.
And with that, we end on Sports News for tonight. I'm Barong, Tony Ranta, Annie Joma will be back with a wrap.
Thanks, Barong. Now, in the Horn of Africa, a suicide bomber has killed at least 18 police officers during a parade at a training center in the Somali capital, Mogadishu. At least 15 other people were reported to be wounded. The bomber, disguised as a policeman, blew himself up at the General Kahite Police Academy. The militant Islamist group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for the attack, and the group regularly carries out bombings in Mogadishu and other towns. At least 4 people have died in southern France after a school bus and a train collided. Reports say 2 children were among the dead and that 7 others had been injured. The collision occurred in the afternoon on a railway crossing at a small town close to the border with Spain. And in the Middle East, Israel has announced the closure of its Gaza border crossings in response to daily rocket fire from the enclave over the past week. Now, this comes after U.S. President Donald Trump formally recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, sparking outrage in Palestine.
The Israeli military said in a statement that due to the security events and in accordance with security assessment, Kerem Shalom crossing, the main passage point for goods entering the Gaza Strip and the area's pedestrian crossing would be shut as of Thursday. They did not say how long the closure would last. Some 15 rockets have been fired into southern Israel since Trump's December the 6th announcement, and none of the projectiles have caused serious injury or damage. The attacks have drawn Israeli airstrikes that have killed 2 Hamas gunmen. 2 other Palestinians have been killed in confrontations with Israeli troops during stone-throwing protests along the border. Meanwhile, David Brin, managing director of Jerusalem Post, a well-known newspaper in Israel, says President Trump's announcement still leaves some space for negotiations.
That's why this whole declaration is not so defined, to leave it ambiguous as to what, that to enable possibly in the future Jerusalem to also be the capital of Palestine. So East Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine, West Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, if it leads to that, if negotiations lead to that.
The summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation aims to reach a consensus on the Jerusalem dispute amongst all Islamic countries after Trump unilaterally recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel on December the 6th. Established in 1969, the OIC groups 57 countries and regions and has a combined population of over 1.6 billion people.
And the main news again. The acting chairman of the EFCC and Director General of the DSS today appeared before the Senate committee as lawmakers begin probe of clashes among security agencies. And also, governors of the 36 states today approved the withdrawal of $1 billion for the purchase of equipment to fight the insurgency. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Hunyato. Do have a good night.